So, welcome to our new Voices online talk series on food, plants, remedies, and healing practices, women's ideas in the history of medicine. This summer term talk series is organized in collaboration with Dr. Fabrizio Bigotti, Director of the Center for the Study of Medicine and the Body in the Renaissance, whom I would like to thank for his commitment and support of our event. Please introduce yourself, Fabrizio.
Of course, I'm delighted. I'm Fabrizio Bigotti, director of the CSMBR, as Jill just said. And the idea behind this series was to integrate women history into mainstream medical history. And I'm delighted to be able to co-organize this event with Jill. When 1 year ago, correct me if I'm mistaken, Jill, probably even more than that, 2 years ago, we signed this memorandum of understanding to increase the visibility of women in mainstream history. I had no idea that we could have such an important event coming so soon. And again, I'm very happy to bring you the greetings of the CSMBR and its community. I have unfortunately to apologize because I'm leaving in the turn of a few minutes because I'm busy with another conference. I couldn't postpone, unfortunately, this commitment, but I wanted to be in for the launch of it. And with this, I'm happy to pass it on again to Gilles.
Thank you, Fabrizio. I will only quickly show what we will see in the next talk series, or what is the topic, I would say, of this talk series. So the series will explore the invaluable contributions of women throughout history who have shaped our understanding and use of natural healing methods. From ancient herbal remedies to pioneering nutritional concepts, we will explore the profound impact of women's knowledge and creativity in the field of medicine. Women have played an integral role in the history of medicine, often serving as healers, caretakers, midwives, and custodians of traditional knowledge about food, plants, remedies, and healing practices. It has always been the woman who looks after and cares for the sick, children, parents, husband, especially in the home. Since the 60s and 70s centuries, this tradition has been increasingly recorded in writing, which today gives us an invaluable insight not only into the household and the life of women, but also into their medical knowledge and the various illnesses and cures. In this talk series, we will travel back in time to discover the stories of remarkable women, healers, herbalists, physicians, and researchers. Each session will highlight innovative ways in which women have harnessed the power of nature for health and well-being, influencing practices that have become the cornerstone of holistic medicine today. And I would like also to draw your attention to our call for papers on the same topic. For more information, please visit our website of the center, HVPS, where you can find the details of the call and the deadline. Thank you. So let's start our summer term 2024 talk series with a lecture by Giulia Guidara. She is postdoctoral fellow at the Giunta Centrale per gli Studi Storici of Rome. Her research focuses on the imperfect balance between credence in astrology and belief in free will, intended as the freedom to do otherwise and the power of self-determination in the Middle Ages. She is the author of Prima di Platone, Plotinio e gli inizi della filosofia greca, published in 2021, which examines how Plotinus uses the post-Socratics to give legitimacy and authority to his philosophical theories. Guidara is currently writing a book on how the medieval concept of free will changes after the Arabic Latin translation movement. Guidara received her bachelor's degree in philosophy at the University of Pisa and her PhD in humanities from the University of Trento. During her PhD, she did a 1-year postgraduate specialization course in science of culture at the Scuola Alti Studi of the Fondazione San Carlo in Modena and conducted a research stay at the École Pratique des Hautes Études of Paris. Then she had a research fellowship at the University of Fribourg in Switzerland. Prior to coming to Giunta Centrale per gli Studi Storici, Guidara held a postdoctoral fellowship at the University of Pisa. And today she presents a paper on Hildegard of Bingen, From Body to Soul, Mental Disorders in Hildegard of Bingen, Cause et Cure. Welcome, Giulia. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Jill, for the introduction and for the invitation to the summer term talk series that starts today. Today, I will talk about mental disorders in medieval medicine, taking as a case study a text of Hildegard of Bingen, De Cause et Cure, titles, that means causes and treatment. As an authority in the field of medieval medicine, Hildegard needs no introduction. She has probably been active in the infirmary of Dizzy Bodenberg since at a very young age, and in the infirmary of Rupersberg, and she is one of the few women to have written a medical treatise, De Cause et Cure, and De Physica, which contains large section devoted to medicine. Probably De Cause et Cure and De Physica were originally part of a larger work, De Liber Subtilitatum Diversarum Naturarum Creaturarum, devoted to various aspects of nature, from events to the human body. After Hildegard's death, this work would have been dismembered to increase the number of her writings and thus facilitate her canonization process. Today, I will examine De Cause et Cure, given that, if compared to Physica, it lists a greater number of mood-related disorders and emotional disturbances, and provides a more detailed treatment of their causes. Hildegard's medical treatise, De Cause et Cure, clarifies some points of the relationship between woman and medical practice. First of all, the text shows that in the 12th century, the period in which Hildegard lived, women practiced medicine, even if women didn't usually write medical treatises, a phenomenon which certainly aligns with the fact that women write less than men in all fields of knowledge. Then, De Cause et Cure shows that women treat women as well as men. De Cause et Cure deals with diseases of both women and men. Finally, De Cause et Cure shows that the medical knowledge of women is identical to that of men, at least in Hildegard's day. Indeed, the main sources of De Cause et Cure are the most important medical texts of the time, namely some work of the Schola Medica Salernitana, that was the first and most important medical school during the 10th and the 12th centuries, and the translation of Constantine the African, who translated Arabic medical texts into Latin in the 11th century. Probably, Hildegard found this text in the library of Rupersberg or in that of the Abbey of Trier. All these works form the basis of the medical practice of the time. The clear distinction between the medical practice of men and that of women begins from the 13th century onwards. During that period, a series of royal and religious decrees prohibited medical practice to non-graduated physicians and consequently to women who, as is known, could not access universities. Therefore, women could not practice as pharmacists, surgeons, and barber surgeons under the guidance of a man, often the husband or father. Women who practiced medicine independently were legally punished or accused of witchcraft. De Cause et Cure is a handbook of medicine where Hildegard describes causes, symptoms, and treatments of numerous disorders. The work is divided into 5 books, and 3 of them contain extensive medical sections, namely the 3rd, the 4th, and the 5th book. The first 2 books also address other topics. The first book contains a long discussion of cosmology and physics, while the second is mainly devoted to the theory of the 4 humors. The Cause et Cure contains both a cosmological section and parts devoted to human nature and medicine, because the human being is part of nature, and what happens in his body can be affected and cured by other parts of the cosmos. Before discussing mental disorder in the Cause et Cure, some preliminary clarifications are necessary. It is not easy to talk about mental disorders in medieval medicine, because in the Middle Age, neither the expression nor the category of mental disorder existed, with all the various diagnoses that fall within it. However, it is possible to talk about mental disorder in the Middle Ages for two reasons. The first reason is that the absence of the expression mental disorders or other similar ones does not mean that such diseases do not exist, of course. And the second reason is that medieval medicine identifies diseases whose symptoms mainly concern mood and behavior, and this corresponds to our definition of mental disorder, as emerges from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorder 5 of the American Psychiatric Association, which is today's reference text for mental health. In this perspective, I have identified in the cause et cure 9 disorders that alter mood and behavior to the point of affecting the quality of life and social function of the individual. These disorders are amentia, madness, dementia, an impaired ability to think, despair, that is akin to the modern concept of depression, timiditas, that is a sense of apathy accompanied by frequent mood swings, diabolicum phantasma, a disorder manifested by frequent hallucination and nightmares, melancholia, melancholy, ira, anger, tristizia, profound sadness, and insomnia. At this regard, it should be noted that both amentia and dementia belong to the sphere of madness, but the text makes no clear distinction between them. However, other medical texts, as for example the Proprietaribus Rerum of Bartholomeus Anglicus, an encyclopedic work of the 13th century, describe amentia as a chronic disease that alternates periods with madness and periods without madness, while dementia seems to be a more general term for madness. And precisely in regard to madness, it should be noted that in the cause et cure, as well in medieval medical tradition in general, mental disease does not affect the anima rationalis and its more important faculty, free will. Indeed, the fact that someone is crazy does not mean that he has no rationality. Madness is due to the body, and God gives anima rationalis to everyone. So, amentia, dementia, sense of despair, timiditas, diabolicus phantasma, melancholia, ira, tristizia, and insomnia are described in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th book, and in many cases, the same disorder is addressed in different and distant chapters of the cause et cure. And this is probably due to the editorial circumstances. As we have seen, the cause et cure did not undergo a final revision by Hildegard, since it was not conceived as a standalone text, but was originally part of a larger work that has been dismembered by others. Furthermore, the technical nature of the writing, it is a medical handbook, probably made it subject to later expansion and modification, which may have given rise to different treatment of the same topic. The fact to discuss the medical treatment of mental disorder in the Middle Ages is not a virtuosity, a search for what exists but is not seen, but a philosophically and scientifically relevant theme. In fact, the way in which this disorder are scientifically conceived and treated is very different from today. And at the basis of this profound difference lies not only, as one can easily think, a change in medical practice, but also a very different idea of human being. And it is especially on this last point that, at the end, I would like to draw your attention. The causes and treatment of the mental disorders presented in the cause et cure show that the medieval thought, often accusing common sense of denigrating the concrete and material aspect of reality, actually attributes to the body a central role in defining the human being. So let's talk now about the causes of mental disorders. In the cause et cure, the common causes of all diseases is the original sin. By eating the forbidden fruit, Adam corrupted his seed and, with it, the blood of all his descendants. For this reason, the blood and other humors of the human body ulcerate the flesh, and these wounds cause storms and vapors from which harmful humors and disease arise. The original sin thus gave rise to a state of general corruption that made the onset of disease possible. However, the etiology of the cause et cure does not stop here. The text describes the causes of all disease, and in the third, fourth, and fifth book, treatments are prescribed and explained on the basis of such description. Disorders affecting the emotional and cognitive sphere are attributed to four types of causes: imbalance between humors, melancholia, intense emotion, and deposition of the moon at the time of conception. Let's examine each cause in detail. As we have already seen, some disorders are attributed to an imbalance between humors. Indeed, the theory of the four humors is the framework for all medieval medicine, and naturally the cause et cure is no exception. The humors mentioned in the text are moist, humidum, dry, siccum, tepidum, and froth, spuma, and they derive from the action of the four elements, the true pillars of the natural world, on the body. Thus, there is a continuity between the natural world and the human body, because the foundation of one are also, mutatis mutandis, the foundation of the other. The dry arises from the action of fire on the organism. The moist derives from that of the air and its humidity. The froth form a result of water through the blood, and the tepid is related to the action of heat through the flesh. Within the body, the four humors must always be in balance with each other. Otherwise, disease occurs. This is a natural law from which no one escapes except individuals in Gratia Dei. The strength of Samson, the prophecy of Jeremiah, and the wisdom of Solomon and Plato are attributed to proportion between humors that are abnormal, but that do not cause disease because they are blessed by God. A group of disease is explained on the basis of the theory of the four humors. The physiological states associated with various disorders are not presented as something that accompanies emotional discomfort, but as its triggering cause. An excess of tepid humor causes madness, amentia. The prevalence of dry humors causes dementia. From an excess of moist or froth humor derives a state of profound and debilitating despair. Timiditas, that is, a sense of apathy with mood swings, stems from the prevalence of tepid over dry and dry over moist and froth. Except for amentia, the cause et cure do not describe treatment for this disease. So it seems that psychological illness derived from an imbalance between humors is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to treat. In addition to the imbalance between humors, the cause et cure also attributes disorder affecting mood and behavior to other physical causes. And in this context, we find the melancholia, and a whole series of related discomforts, which sometimes can become chronic and pathological. Melancholia is the most complex psychophysical disorder addressed in the cause et cure. The text provides different versions of its possible causes and relates it to many other pathologies, often in a non-univocal way, as it presents it sometimes as their cause and sometimes as their consequence. Melancholia is black and bitter and derives from the original sin. Certainly, all diseases stem from the original sin, as we have seen. However, the link between melancholia and Adam's guilt seems to be particularly strong, given that this is the only disorder that the cause et cure presents as a direct consequence of human transgression. In fact, the text explains that by eating the apple, Adam physically changed his nature, and such transformation caused melancholia. for melancholia has coagulated in human blood, and the human being becomes just like an extinguished lamp, which emits no longer light, but only full odor. From this coagulation in the blood, the effects of melancholia arise and affect both the body and the spirits. In the body, melancholia causes psychosomatic pains in head and heart. Headache is related to melancholia in two ways. It can arise from the smoke with which melancholia intoxicates the body, or it can be a consequence of fevers induced by melancholia. On the contrary, there is only one cause of heartache: the large amount of harmful humors that melancholia introduces into the spleen and the viscera. The effects of melancholia on the emotional and behavioral level are various and complex. Melancholia is a crisis in the relationship between human beings and God. In melancholia, the human beings fear God and despair because they think He does not see them. From this crisis derived sadness, despair, doubts, disbelief, and the diabolicum phantasma, a disorder that causes frequent hallucination and nightmare. The cause et cure also relates the diabolicum phantasma with the devil's spell and a certain weakness of the subject, which makes them particularly predisposed to devil's spell. This does not contradict the idea that the diabolicum phantasma derives from melancholia. Indeed, the devil's spell and human weakness are made possible by the crisis in the relationship between human beings and God, and melancholia is the first production and the most tangible manifestation of this crisis. Anger mixed with sadness is another consequence of melancholia. Indeed, the latter creates smokes that, in turn, triggers anger. If anger becomes chronic, it becomes a disease that causes pain. In this case, the cause is a state of excessive dryness produced by anger in the organism. The connection between melancholia and mental discomfort becomes particularly evident in the sexual and reproductive sphere. Melancholic men may incur insomnia, madness, in case of sexual abstinence. Women, on the other hand, may experience madness, insomnia, in case of premature menopause. Furthermore, the sons of melancholic men are particularly prone to mental disorders. They were conceived without love and therefore cannot love or be loved due to their difficult nature and their ghosts. The relationship between melancholia and mental discomfort is extremely complex, because in some passages, melancholia is presented as the consequence rather than the cause of emotional discomfort. The cause et cure explains that sadness, timiditas, and mental instability create problems in physical constitution and health, as they lead to the formation of a mass phlegm that is the cause of melancholia, or more accurately, the second cause of melancholia, since its first cause is the serpent's breath of the original sin. However, the cause et cure also explains that melancholia is the consequence of the smoke produced in the body from excessive anger, which can lead to madness, insomnia. In general, therefore, melancholia and other disorders affecting mood and behavior seems to be a sort of spectrum that includes a range of linked conditions, and it is difficult to establish which is the cause and which is the effect. In the cause et cure, the third type of causes of cognitive and psychological disorders are situations that overload the individual with emotions and thoughts, mostly negative. Amentia, which as seen before is attributable to an excess of tepid humor, can also be triggered by an excess of thoughts, which cools the brain and make it possible for bad humors to increase. In addition, this situation can be aggravated by the arrival of demons, which, says Hildegard, are always attracted to head issues, or as we would say today, psychological issues. Insomnia also arises from people's emotional experiences. Anger, sadness, fear, anxiety, or even great joy narrow the veins and hinder blood circulation. This raises a wind in the body that continues to keep the body temperature high and makes it difficult to fall asleep, even after the strong emotion that triggered it have passed. Lastly, mental and emotional disorder can be attributed to astrological causes, namely the position of the moon in the sky at the time of conception. Those born under the 21st moon are destined to suffer from sadness, and in the case of women, this sadness is particularly debilitating. Those born under the 22nd moon can become seriously ill from frenzy. Males born under the 27th moon are affected with melancholia, while those born under the 28th moon are prone to amencia. Even in this case, however, the disorders have an organic basis, because the position of the moon at the time of conception determines the constitution of the individual, although the lunar calendar does not describe in detail this process. From the short review above, a key finding emerged. All disorder affecting mind, emotion, and behavior have an organic basis. In the case of disorders due to the imbalance between humors and those related to melancholia, this is evident. In the case of disorders with non-organic cause, such as those caused by intense experiences or the position of the moon at the time of conception, the bodily aspect is still present. Indeed, there is an intermediate element between the non-bodily cause and the disorder, namely a particular physiological condition that determines the discomfort but cannot be properly considered the cause. In conclusion, the body is a central element in every disease. The soul alone is not enough to explain dysfunctional behaviors and mental states. Let's talk now about the treatment of mental disorders. While the origin of illness is in humans who become ill and who, more generally, are tainted by original sin, the origin of medical science is in God. De Causa et Cure clarifies that all medicine proposed have been indicated by God, and the course of diseases depend on His will. Given that Hildegard is not only an expert in medicine, but also a mystic, it is necessary to dwell on the meaning of this statement. Perhaps the remedies proposed were revealed to Hildegard by God? The text is extremely concise on this point and presents no element to affirm or refute this hypothesis. However, it is likely that attributing medicine to God is to be understood in a broader sense. God did not reveal the treatments to Hildegard in ecstasies, but rather guided her mind in medical research and practice, just as He guides everything good that all human beings do. From this perspective, medicine is a necessary and infallible knowledge. Indeed, medicine derived from God, and whether a patient recovers, remains ill, or dies depends not on the skill of the physician or on the quality of the treatment, but only on God's will. However, in the Causa et Cure, medicine is not only a knowledge that derives from God, but also a deeply human science, and this aspect becomes particularly evident in the section on the remedies. In fact, every time the text describes a treatment, it also refers to the cause of the disease, and thus highlights that the treatment is the consequence of the cause. Therefore, in the cause et cure, medicines are not obscure and enigmatic remedies, but therapies based on a precise knowledge of the causes and symptoms of disease. In short, the medicine of the cause et cure derives from God, but at the same time is perfectly in line with human rationality and knowledge. After this preamble on the divine and human nature of medicine, let's now analyze the remedies proposed for disorder affecting emotion, behavior, and rationality. It is necessary to premise that not all of them seems to be curable. Indeed, the cause et cure does not provide solution for dementia, timiditas, despair, which that are all disorders related to the imbalance between humors, and the cause et cure does not provide solution for melancholia and insomnia. The cognitive and emotional disorders that can be treated are amentia, insomnia, diabolicus phantasma, ira, seen as a lasting mood, tristizia, and pains related to melancholia, headache and heartache. The possibility of curing a disease does not depend on the affected area or its cause. In fact, both groups contain disorder with different causes that damage both cognitive and emotional spheres. Only disorder related to intense experiences, namely insomnia and madness, can all be treated. In general, the principle with which all therapies are prescribed is to counteract the effects of the disease in the body through remedies that are of opposite nature or, more rarely, of the same nature. Symptoms and treatments are explained on the basis of the interaction in the patient's body among heat, cold, dryness, and humidity. Disorders create an imbalance between these four qualities, which the treatment counteracts, or in the case of insomnia and partially ira, accentuates. Insomnia arises from an increase in body temperature caused by a strong emotion. To counteract it, the cause et cure prescribes pecks on the head, chest, and neck, which calm the veins and heart and induce sleep by virtue of their warmth. The ingredients are slightly different depending on whether the problems occur in summer or winter, because in cold weather not all herbs can be found. In summer, the ingredients are fennel and yarrow for the head pack, and asparagine, fresh sage, and wine for the chest and neck pack. In winter, the head pack is made from fennel seeds and yarrow roots, the same plants used in summer, but in a different form, while the pack for the neck and chest is made with powdered sage and does not include yarrow or wine. Therefore, the warmth of the remedies suits the head caused by the ailment. Indeed, the warmth of sage slows down the heart and calms the veins. The warmth of fennel induces sleep. The warmth of yarrow stabilizes sleep. The other remedies that adds warmth to the heads of the disorder is proposed for ira. The dryness caused by ira is treated with powder of warm ingredients, bay berries and leaves of sage and marjoram, to be applied with wine or on the forehead, temples, and chest. The wine and marjoram soothes, while sage and bay berries replenish the humus dried by hunger. To increase the warmth of the medicine, it is recommended to dry marjoram and sage on a brick warmed by the sun in summer. Instead, in order to treat anger accompanied by sadness, the therapy must counteract the effect of the ailment in the body. Indeed, this state of mind is connected to the watery smoke that melancholia arouses. It needs to extinguish such smoke with warm wine and cold water. Similarly, psychosomatic pains caused by melancholia are fought with remedies of a nature contrary to the causes. If melancholia increases toxic humors, it is necessary to dry out the body. Headache arises from the watery smoke caused by melancholia. The remedy is a poultice to be applied to the head for 3 days, made of mallow and sage, which dry out the melancholia, and oil and vinegar, which alleviate the pain. The treatment for head pain consists of cakes that balance heat and coldness. The coldness is provided by fenugreek, the heat by white pepper, galangal, chamomile, savory, broad beans, and the sun, which must dry the cakes. And the treatment for head pain include also an infusion of licorice, fennel, sugar, and honey, which eliminates mucus in the heart thanks to the heart, and the power of white pepper, cumin, and fenugreek, which alleviates the pain. The principle of opposition between the qualities of the disorder and those of the remedy is also followed in the case of amentia. Indeed, amentia cools the brain, and the treatment consists of warming it with a felt or woolen cap that can be soaked in two compounds. One is made of powder of laurel berries, wheat flour, cardamom water, while the other of flour and broth of nutmeg, galangal, gromwell root, and salt. To regain consciousness, it is recommended to drink tansy juice, which restrains bad humors, and fennel, which uplifts the mood. Finally, it is advised to follow a specific diet consisting of delicate foods, polenta with butter and lard, and beer, as they help maintain the necessary level and balance of humors for well-being, and to avoid dry foods, which increase bad humors, to avoid oil, which increases phlegm levels, and to avoid wine, mead, and water. The only partial exception to this framework is the diabolicum phantasma. Indeed, the treatment involves not only natural remedies, but also a ritual. The reason is given by the nature of the disorder. The diabolicum phantasma is connected, as seen, to an organic cause, the weakness of the individual, but its true cause is a spell by the devil. To fight the disorder, the patient must affix a band made of elk and roder skin to his chest and side with steel nails. Each nail must be applied with a different formula a part of the formula is the same and a part change, because the part that change is the part where the patient must speak to God. Although this treatment is different from the other described earlier, the principle of which it is based is always the same. The cure must bring qualities that contrast with those of the disorder. Indeed, the goal is to instill strength, thanks to the steel and elk, and purity through the roder, namely the two qualities that keep the devil away. At this point, we have enough element to reflect on the profound differences between our current understanding of mental disorder and how disorders affecting emotion, cognition, and behavior were conceived and treated in the Middle Ages. The most obvious and significant difference concerns the medical paradigm. Over the centuries, medicine has undergone profound changes, and physics, biology, neuroscience, psychology, and psychiatry have supplanted reflection on the proportion of head called motor and dryness in the body and their effects. The second difference concerns the scientific treatment of psychic disorder. Today, mental disorders constitute well-defined categories, whereas in the Middle Ages there was no distinction between disorder primarily affecting the body and thus manifested mainly at a level of behavior, mood, and cognition. The third difference concerns the quantity of psychic disorder identified. Our category of mental disorder is quite broad and sophisticated, while medieval medicine reduced alteration in behavior and thought flow to a limited number of disorders. Finally, today there is a broader and more articulated view of the etiology and therapy of mental disorders. It is known, in fact, that these disorders can be due to physical causes, hereditary or acquired, such as infection, malformation, traumas, hormonal imbalances, or to culture, social environment, received education, or personal experiences. Consequently, the range of treatment has also been expanded. Various types of medicine and psychological therapies are used, which intervene on how to process and manage information and emotions. In medieval medicine, however, the body is the only factor that determines health and disease. In fact, the causes are almost exclusively bodily, and even if they are not bodily, such as in the insomnia and certain types of madness, the body is still central. And the treatments always act on the body. The focus on the body, so to speak, has two consequences. The first is that there is no moral judgment, even in the case of ira, that is one of the 7 capital sins, or in the case of melancholia, that is not only a natural temperament, but also a predisposition to the heavy. The second consequence of the focus on the body is that the social environment has no influence on the human being, and lived experiences leave only a superficial and short-lived imprint. Therefore, for medieval medicine, the environment is only natural and can only act on the body in the form of therapies or lunar influence at the time of conception. Medieval mentality does not recognize any connection between the human beings and their social and cultural environment. Consequently, people can and must seek well-being only by acting on the body. The possibility to change the context where they live is not taken into account. This applies not only at a general level, namely as a social context, but also at an individual level. In fact, no therapy advises the patient to change his or her way of saying things or his or her effective relational context. The idea that some relationship can be toxic or that certain beliefs, although deeply rooted in the subject or widely held, can have harmful effects is very distant from medieval mentality. Attributing the origin of and the cause of all illness to the body partly absolves the patient of responsibility. In fact, he or she does not have to do anything except turn to the physician. But in some cases also precludes the possibility of recognizing and eliminating the real causes of his or her discomfort and of changing his or her life for the better. Thanks for the attention.